Hi, and welcome to another Dolphin Financial Radio Show with me, Dan Wendell. Today's topic is going to answer the question, how much is the maximum you can get from Social Security in a check? To the viewers on YouTube, the spoiler alert, it's right there. But to the podcast listeners, we're going to get into that. We're going to talk about this. And of course, I got to bring in my co-host, Tony Shore, because he's always interested in talking about Social Security. Tony, I bet you did not know it, and I was going to ask you. Well, Tony, what is the maximum benefit someone can get in 2022 from Social Security? Do you know?
Well, I was going to say something like $3,500 or $3,800. I thought it was in the 3,000 something zone. But then you title the show, "What's the maximum you can get?" And then you put the number behind you. So I'm guessing you're going to tell me it's $4,194. I'm just pulling a figure out of
Wow,
my.
you got it. If I had a little, celebration ding, I'd say you're the winner.
Hey,
You
but at
got it.
least I'm being honest. I honestly thought, if you didn't have that number up there, my guess would have been 37 or 3,800.
And I think by now I knew that, and I knew that the viewers and the listeners all knew you would get it wrong. So we didn't have to go down that path.
Oh no!
So,
Oh no!
God bless Social Security.
God bless Social Security.
the maximum benefit used to be always like 3,500, and that's the
Yeah.
round figure I used to throw out. That's where you got it from. So I've
Yeah.
been feeding you misinformation all these years.
At least you're owning up on that. But this is one of our favorite topics because there are so many misconceptions out there about it, and I know you like to set us straight, and I think that's great. But
with Social Security a thing of the past, she can't afford to retire.
that's what a
Right.
lot of people are concerned about.
Right. And we're going to that's going to be my conclusion, another spoiler alert. But I want to talk about how Social Security is calculated a little bit.
Okay.
And before your eyes glaze over on
Oh, no.
formulas and such, I'm going to try and keep it simple because I get comments all the time on YouTube. People, when they call and they ask me about Social Security, their situation, they say, oh, you made it simple. So hopefully I don't make it too complex. But I do want to get into how it's calculated because people are always asking, well, what's the max I can get? And how is that calculated? Why is mine low? Why is my ex-husband so high? Or something like that. He was lazy.
Sure.
Why, that kind of thing.
He was
So-
lazy. Of course he was.
All right. So we're at $4,194 a month from Social Security. That's not a bad gig, right?
No, that sounds good to me. I mean, for Social Security.
Right. So how do you get there? And if that was your check and you're 63 years old and you're like, I can get a $4,194 check per month, you might say, all right, I'm done. I'm retired. And that's all I need, right? Because that's a pretty
Yeah, but you
decent
couldn't
chunk.
do that at 63.
Ah, see, Tony knows. So let's talk about how it's calculated. It's a simple.
It's not.
Oh,
There's
sorry.
no. There's
I know.
math. It's
I
not
can't
gonna
even
be
say
simple.
that with a straight face.
No.
a
They use
step-
algorithms and magic. There's magics.
Yeah, and I think it wasn't David Copperfield. I forget who the guy that was on the Social Security Administration originally. The guy Houdini, Harry Houdini, I think it was. Yeah, he was involved, and he didn't do so well. That's why he went into the escape artist stuff. Yeah, so let's talk about how it's calculated. Step one, okay? The first thing they do is they take what they call the AIME, the average index monthly earnings. Okay, so how is that calculated? There's a formula, okay, but the first thing they do, you have to figure out what your average indexed monthly earnings were
Or
over your
Amy.
lifetime. Over your lifetime. Amy, right? Your Amy. We're gonna call it Amy.
Yep.
Yeah, you were just singing that song, right? You were.
Yeah.
Quick quiz. Who sang that?
Amy.
Who sang that song?
Pure Prairie League.
See, he's good, folks. He's real good. And they say you're nothing but noise. Okay, so the result to get your Amy, to get your average index monthly earnings, you take the highest 35 years of your work history. What does that mean? On the books, by the way. So if you used to wash dishes and got cash under the table, that's not going to count toward your Social Security earnings. This is wages on the books that you're paying Social Security tax on. Okay? And it's not just your last 5, your top 10. It's your top 35. A lot of people that are on Social Security or getting on Social Security now have worked longer than 35 years. And so they just take the top 35. But some people don't have 35 years of work history. That does not mean you won't get Social Security. You really only need about 10 years of work history to qualify. And let's say you have 20 years of work history. Then there's going to be 15 years of zero. They'll put 15 zeros in the magic formula.
Wow.
So they take your average earnings and they divide it by 420, which is the number of months in 35 years, and that becomes step one. Okay?
Sure. And that actually is pretty simple. They just take your 35 years of work history, and they calculate the average by 420.
That's right.
Yeah, that's easy. But if people don't work 35 years, they think, am I out? Well, no, your amount will be less, but they just calculate the years that you didn't work or didn't pay in as zero. So that hurts your calculation there.
Right. And you could check your earnings history. You could see if they made a mistake. And we did our last show. I think it was our last show. We did it on the new statements. So I'll put that up here for people to watch that show. How the new statements look, and we talked about how your work history is broken down. They don't show the 90s or the 80s anymore. They put it in one lump sum, but you can go online and get the details you want. But okay, so how do you get a high? Because if you have a low index monthly earnings, so right away your formula is going to be shot, right? So how do you get it? How do they calculate it? So this isn't how much you made; it's how much was taxable. So you might say, I didn't make that much in the 1970s, but I made a decent chunk in the 80s, 90s, whatever. It's based on your earnings that year, and Social Security doesn't tax all of your earnings. It taxes up to the maximum. So in 2022, the maximum amount of income that's taxed for Social Security purposes is $147,000. So if you make $5 million in 2022, remember how you got started. Remember me, Tony. If you just remember, I'm your friend, right? If you make $5 million next year in 2022, only 147,000 of that will be taxed for Social Security's purposes. Okay,
interesting. I forgot that there was a cap on that, on how much they would tax and take out for Social Security. They're talking about, though, raising that or changing how much they take out, the percentages.
That's right, because this is what's going to maybe help improve the Social Security fund, is increasing the level at which people are getting taxed. So it would disproportionately work against those that are earning a lot. But so be it. But right now that's $147,000. So if you make more than that, you don't pay Social Security tax on that. Okay. Now, so that is also indexed. So that 147,000 didn't start that way. In fact, when the program started, what would you say was the max earnings when it started in the 1930s?
Probably like 10,000.
3,000.
3,000
was the most that they would tax.
And now it's 147. That's called inflation, kids.
Right there. Right. That's right. So it's indexed. It's indexed. Right. So, hey, I only made 20,000. I only made $8,000 in 1972, but that was a lot back then, right? Well, all of it would have been taxable because in 1972, 9,000 was the max. And then, as an example, in 2000, 76,200 was the max. So that means that's how you would max out your average index monthly earnings. You'd have to have 35 years of hitting the max. So your work history, in order for you to get this $4,194 a month in 2022 from Social Security, you would have 35 years of maxed wages, taxable maximum wages.
And who's going to have that for 35 years? Probably no.
For 35 years. Well, it is indexed. So, if you started working in the 70s and you made 10,000, or you were, let's say you were a famous radio personality, Tony, right? They get paid the big bucks, don't they? The DJs. Let's say you were a DJ in Nashville in the 1980s. That's the high paying job, right?
Yeah, nope. But
So
there are some radio announcers who have made some money, but not early on. That's for
right,
sure.
right.
Yeah,
So I mean, there are people that fit into this. There are
sure.
people, but they're going to be high paying people, right? And they're going to
Yeah.
be high paying over a course of 35 years of work history.
Wow.
And so it's usually not your first job, but your last 35 years of working. So if you say you're going to take it at 67, so at age 32, maybe you hit your stride at 32 and you're making a lot of money and you're maxing out. Are there 32-year-olds making $147,000 or more? Yeah. They're called,
Sure.
Google employees or something, right? So
Yeah.
they might be hitting this, especially if you live in California where 147,000 is the minimum wage or something like that.
Yeah,
right?
exactly.
So,
Yeah.
And this is a national program. So wages, right?
But
Okay.
what you're telling us, I think, is very few people are actually hitting that 4194.
Right. They would have had to have 35 years work history that is high. That's the first part. Okay. Now there's more. Okay. So you take that. This is where it gets your eyes will glaze over. They create this PIA formula. They have a PIA formula, which is the primary insurance amount, which is their way of saying what your full retirement age benefit is. So when you go online, Social Security, and they say, what are you going to get when you hit 67, as an example, that is a formula in which they take your Amy, right, and
Right.
they put it in some formula and factor in cost of living increases, and they come up with the magical primary insurance amount.
Yeah.
So that's how your PIA is calculated. They add your Amy and they do a little extra. And I put on a link here for people if they want to see that formula. But what it does is it takes when you first are eligible for Social Security, most people 62, they start adding cost of living increases up to your full retirement age. So it's actually beneficial for you because they're not just going to say what your full retirement age is and that's it. They actually include COLAs. So for people that are turning 62 in 2022 and the COLA was 5.9%, their PIA, their full retirement age benefit's going to be increasing. So that's a good thing, right? So then they tell you, okay, here's what your full retirement age benefit is. And let's say you max it out because you have 35 years of work history. So far, so good. Oh, I'm going to get 4,194.
But you're not.
You're not. You're not, because you then have to adjust what your benefit is based on your age. So if you are eligible for 4,194, you're not going to be eligible for that at your full retirement age. Because I said, this is the maximum you can get. So you have to not only have 35 years of work history, you also have to wait until age. What age you have to wait until it gets
70, right?
70.
Yeah.
So
70. Because it rolls up each year. It rolls
right.
up by like 8 after your full retirement age. I think it rolls up 8% a year.
That's
And
right.
so
After your full retirement age.
a lot is added. So it's greatly reduced if you take it at 62, and then it's still reduced. It's better if you take it at full retirement age, but it's still reduced. The maximum would be when you're 70, is what you're saying.
Exactly. So this maximum number to get it is 35 years. Yeah, I'll do this. How to get the maximum Social Security benefit. You have to earn at or above the wage-based limit, which is indexed for 35 years. Right? You have to be a top earner for 35 years, and then you have to wait until age 70 to claim it.
Okay. So you've just eliminated
99.9%
of all people collecting Social Security.
Right. So if anyone says to you, I'm getting $4,194, I'm getting the max, you know how they did it. Now, if someone says, I'm getting the max, then you look at them and you say, yeah, I don't think you are. You're only 65 years old. There's no way you're getting the max. You might be getting the maximum for your age, right? You may have 35 years of work history, but you're not getting the max you could have gotten.
Yeah.
This is not to say that you should wait till 70 to claim Social Security. That's a different discussion.
Yeah, I
right?
was just going to say that you're not trying to tell people with this talk today and this information that they should always wait. Some people it might make sense, but everybody's different. So there's a sweet spot for everybody based on longevity, how much other money you have, your work history, right? I mean,
That's
there are a
right.
lot of factors, right?
That's right. I think what's useful in this context, Tony, obviously, if you want to figure out when it's right for you, you got to run the numbers. So I have
Yeah,
software. I'll
you
put a
got to
link
run the
up here.
numbers. Yeah.
We'll run that for you, send you the report, and you can figure that out. But a lot of
Awesome.
people ask me, okay, Dan, I was divorced. I am divorced. I want my ex-spouse's benefit.
Because it's
It's
higher
going to
than
be
your
higher
own.
than mine. It's going to be higher than mine. I know because I stayed at home and she worked or he worked. And I say to them, well, what's your benefit? Okay. Well, my benefit is $1,800. Okay. That's above the average, right? But it's not anywhere near 4,000. And
Right.
immediately I say, well, you're probably going to take your own. And people say, what? How am I going to take my own? I just told you my spouse's is higher. He worked, he's much higher. He worked and worked. I said, yeah, but you remember, you're not going to get your full ex-spouse's benefit. You're only going to get 50% of it. So even if
Oh,
they
they
maxed
are?
out,
I thought they got the full thing.
no, if they're alive, they only get half. You only get half of your spouse's if yours is low,
I
right?
see.
So if they're alive
Yeah.
and they're maxed out, the most you're going to get is $2,000, right? So if your benefit's 1,800 odds, and so what are the odds that the spouse had waited 70, all that? So most times, if your benefit is around or close to 1,500 to 2,000, odds are you're not going to get a step up from based on your ex-spouse,
Right.
unless they die. Unless the ex-spouse dies, then you get the full benefit. That's a spousal benefit. I'll put that the survivor benefit. I'll put that up here. That's a good show to watch on how to get the full benefit from an ex-spouse if they die, or your current spouse if they die.
And there are a lot of rules to that too.
A lot of
Like you
rules.
have to have been married for at least 10 years and all that, right? Yeah.
So 4194 sounds great.
Yep.
But like you said,
Looks good.
not a lot of people are going to be.
No, unfortunately.
that.
But the good news is you can max your benefits, maybe not to that point. But for your situation, you want to make sure you're playing the Social Security game
Yes.
and doing it right to get the maximum possible benefit that you can get based on all the factors of your work history, et cetera.
Right.
So, in order to do that, Dan, I think the punchline here, right, is have that Social Security maximization report run. And there's no cost or obligation. I know you're willing to run that for our listeners and talk to them about their Social Security if they'd like. And they can do that by just getting a hold of you, right?
Right. That is by far and away the most popular report I run. I mean, there's a big demand for Roth conversion analysis and income planning reports, but most of the people want to start with that Social Security report, and I do a ton of them and just send them out.
Yeah.
The comments and the replies I get from people are it's amazing. Oh, I never knew this. This is great. I send people out on detective hunts. Okay, go find out what your ex-spouse's PIA is, call Social Security, come back to me, And so people, once they understand it, they get it. But in the terms of getting the most out of your own benefit, a lot of it is out of your control, the formula, and the 35-year work history, which, by the way, I want to make a point. If you're saying, oh, should I retire at 64? That doesn't mean you have to actually take Social Security at 64. You could retire and delay Social Security, and then they say, oh, I'm going to get some zeros between 64 and 70 when I go to take it. That's okay. If you look, it's 35 years. If you have a zero in there, it's not going to sink
It's not
the
the
ship,
end of the world, no.
right? So odds are a lot of people don't have any zeros, and they're not moving the needle very much by working an extra 2 years. Yeah. So working extra to increase your Social Security benefit is really tough because it takes that 35 years. But anyway, to conclude this one, Tony, earning the maximum Social Security is not easy. And those that actually do earn the 4194, they typically don't need Social Security, right?
That's the irony. I've been thinking that the whole show. I was going to mention that, but I'm glad you did, because it's weird because of that cap on how much they tax Social Security. The really wealthy are the only ones that are going to possibly hit that mark. And they didn't pay. Only paid in up to a certain amount, and the majority of their income after that wasn't taxed at all for Social Security. Yet they're the ones that get to collect the full amount.
That's right.
So that there's no perfect system, and it's never going to be fair for everyone. You can't please all of the people all of the time. So I know that they had to come up with compromises, but I really believe that, especially depending on the administration and, politics comes into this. We're not going to get into that, but I believe they're going to raise that cap on how much is taxed for Social Security. And you mentioned that.
Yeah, I have in the past. I think I did a show on what Biden might do with Social Security.
Yeah.
Politics aside, I don't care who the president is. If it gets done, I'm happy, because it's got to be fixed.
Yeah.
And addressing it is the best thing for the country as a whole.
Yeah, they can't kick the can down the road much further with
trying.
Social Security.
I mean, we're running out of time for kicking the can.
Yeah.
I mean, theoretically, we could probably wait another 10 years but then it just makes it exponentially harder. But that's a separate topic, separate show. But you're right.
Exactly.
Focus on what you can focus on. How do you get the most out of your own benefit? And now hopefully people will understand what this idea of getting $4,000 a month is not really too real for people. And those that it's real for, they have all this extra money typically
Right.
that they don't need Social Security. Social Security for them is probably either an afterthought or it's only part of their income because they've saved elsewhere. And people should do that at every level, but it's not that easy. But we start here. So thanks for a good show, Tony. I knew you knew the answer. I know I pick on you every time, but what can I say? You're fun to pick on, but what are the odds that within 2022 you hear someone say, "I'm getting $4,500 a month or $4,200 a month in Social Security," and you'll know they're lying. They're lying.
they're probably not telling the truth.
Right.
Yeah.
All right. Well, have a great day, everybody. Thanks for joining us.
All matters discussed in today's show are for informational purposes only.
This show is not investment advice.
Dan Riddle nor Dolphin Financial Group are affiliated or endorsed by any government agency.
Investment advisory services are offered through Dolphin Wealth Management, Inc., a registered investment advisor in the state of Florida.
Insurance products and services are offered through Dolphin Insurance, Inc.
Dolphin Wealth Management, Inc. and Dolphin Insurance, Inc. are affiliated companies doing businesses as Dolphin Financial Group.
You should talk to someone at Dolphin Financial Group before implementing any of these strategies or ideas.